So this is the LaRouche PAC meeting here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm Dave Christie with the LaRouche PAC Policy Committee. So tonight we have as a guest speaker Mr. Thomas Wysmuller. I'll just read a few things from his bio here, and you can add anything else that I missed. So Tom is the chair of the Oceanographic Section, the 2016 World Congress on Oceans, the Qingdao, China, and founding member of NASA's TRCS Climate Group in Houston, Texas. So Tom has a long academic background. I think he also started his career working in NASA during and after the moon landings, and is known today as one of the prominent scientists in climate. And the presentation tomorrow, Tom, is on oceans? Is that
tomorrow will be on sea level rise.
Sea level rising, okay. And that's, it's a group, the property rights group, is that what it's called? That's down in CTAC for anybody that's interested. Tom suggested I mention that to you all. There is a fee, but you can get some details on that after the event here, if you're interested. So, so we're very happy and thankful that you could make it, Tom, and we appreciate that. I just want to say a few things before Tom begins here, because Tom's been a collaborator of the LaRouche movement over the years. He's worked closely with Keisha Rogers. Some of you know her down in Texas, who's had a number of runs for U.S. Congress, both House and Senate, including getting the nomination for the House of Representatives for the Democratic Party. Very unique brand of Democrat, as she was calling for the impeachment of Barack Obama at the time. But Keisha was a longtime collaborator, is a longtime collaborator of Mr. LaRouche as well. And I would just like to say a few things concerning the political, strategic, and cultural mission before us right now, because we're at a very unique crossroads in human history, and something that all of us in this room should feel honored to live through, and honored to have a sense of both what the fight is and how to move it forward, because we stand at the edge of a potential renaissance for the entirety of humanity, and I mean that in a very real sense. We've had the Italian Renaissance, the legacy of the Italian Renaissance spill over into Germany, into the Dutch Renaissance around Rembrandt and so forth. But all of that, the entire movement of the Renaissance had as its core the view of man, which was absolutely opposed to the oligarchical view of man, which the ruling oligarchy of any time, empires, whatever you may call it, view humanity as just the playthings of the elites, the fews, the monarchies, or whatever form of the form that oligarchy takes, and has a very degraded and bestialized view of what the use of those human beings are. Usually it took the form of feudalism, of the peasants that tilled the soil, and then of course the extreme form of the slave systems and so on. But really the modern day varieties of fascism, Nazism, the extreme socialism in the proper sense, all of that has at its root the same imperial mindset and the same degraded, bestialized view of man. And what the Schiller Institute has done under the leadership of Lyndon and Helga LaRouche has said that the foundation of a new renaissance has to be a new conception of humanity. and that as one of beauty, but that beauty rooted in scientific principle. And so this is the moment that we're at, where the present oligarchical system, that which is the heir of the British Empire, which is represented today by the City of London financial crowd, Wall Street, that system is crumbling, and we're about to go through a new financial shock that will make anything previous look like Disneyland. But we have a new emerging system on this planet. One that is taking place today is the Belt and Road Initiative. This is the new Silk Road conception that Mr. LaRouche outlined back in the middle of the 1980s, where you could connect Asia to Europe in terms of high-speed rail systems, ports, airports, water infrastructure, electricity, and bring East and West together in a spirit of collaboration and cooperation. That was then expanded to become the World Land Bridge. I'll just show these here. Probably should have had a slide on this, but this will at least give you a picture of it. This then became the World Land Bridge of connecting all nations, large and small, through economic infrastructure. And this has become the manual for the future development of the planet. And today there is a major conference ongoing in Beijing on the question of the new Silk Road, or what the Chinese call the One Belt, One Road. And that will be one of the foundations of this new renaissance for humanity. The other will be perhaps the greatest domain of collaboration, where you can get beyond petty geopolitics, and British geopolitics will be the domain of space. And so obviously Tom will be speaking on that, on the question of NASA, both from a historical standpoint, but also where we intend to go, which, just as a show of hands, how many of you know that Donald Trump has made the commitment to put an American on the moon within 5 years? Okay, well, maybe perhaps more astute audience, but I can tell you a lot of people have no idea. I talk to them daily that have zero clue that the United States has made that commitment. For those that maybe do, they'll say, but we always say that, but we're never going to do anything. Well, it's an entirely different context, one in which China has just put a rover on the far side of the moon. They actually just came out, I believe it was 2 days ago, saying that within the next decade they'll have a manned mission to the moon, as well as this space station that will be set up on the South Pole. So it's the mission for the United States to get back to the moon is occurring in this international context, and which is also what Trump said when he announced this, that we have to do this with international cooperation. Bridenstine, the head of NASA, also said that very strongly, that we are going to do this with international collaboration. So this is the potential that exists before us, and what I would just like to just briefly make sure that everybody is aware of is that we are on a drive for the exoneration of Mr. LaRouche, who was wrongly imprisoned in 1989, from 89 to 94. He was imprisoned by some of the very same networks that are actively running a coup d'etat against Donald Trump, which he is now explicitly calling out as a coup d'etat, just within the last few days. And the issue is the same. As Mr. LaRouche posed, that we end the Cold War dynamic, the so-called mutually assured destruction, through the Strategic Defense Initiative, which was his policy of joint collaboration between Soviet scientists and US scientists on developing a new technology around laser technology, plasma physics, ultimately, that kind of a breakthrough, that we could then use these lasers to shoot down nuclear warheads. And Ronald Reagan went with that program, And it was the Bush Senior apparatus that had it in for Reagan and went after Mr. LaRouche on behalf of those who were running the Cold War system, those who were running that system of geopolitics, which was this imperial apparatus around the city of London and Wall Street. So to punish Mr. LaRouche, they had him thrown in prison, and he was in there for 5 years. And what we're calling on Trump to do now is to push for the exoneration of Mr. LaRouche, because that encapsulates the essence of the fight that the United States has been in terms of the assault that we've been under by this British imperial force, who have systematically destroyed our physical economy. We've turned entirely to financialization, in other words, just money making money instead of the emphasis on pulling up living standards for our people. This is the same crowd that has made their money off of weapons trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking, and the entire terrorist apparatus that runs it, all laundered through the big banks. And but this is the same crowd that went after Mr. LaRouche and are after Donald Trump today, including Bob Mueller, who was directly involved in the case and frame-up of Mr. LaRouche, who, of course, was just shown to be a fraud in terms of the whole operation by Mr. Trump. So we're at a unique crossroads, and I just want to say, in addition to the ongoing Belt and Road Summit in terms of what that represents as a new potential for humanity, we've also had a major discussion on getting rid of nuclear weapons in just the recent days. Trump has actually said that we need to get China, Russia, and the United States together to work out a new arms deal, or a new arms proliferation agreement. And this is on the heels of what Donald Trump said when LaRouche, who is Xi Jinping's one of his top advisors, who was negotiating the trade deal with Washington, when Trump was meeting with LaRouche, somewhat out of the blue, he said, phase 2 of the trade deal will be getting rid of these weapons. He said, between Russia, China, and the United States, we're making hundreds of billions of dollars of weapons, including nuclear, which is ridiculous. And then calls that we should actually get rid of these weapons. So that was what Trump said a while back as so-called phase 2 of the trade deal. We will have some of the people from Trump who are unsavory characters, in my view. The Mnuchin and Lighthizer are going to be going to China this coming week to hammer out further developments in the trade deal. But Trump did say if we get a trade deal going with China, Xi Jinping and Trump will have a summit. And this will undoubtedly be one of the questions that is raised, is the end of nuclear weapons on this planet. It should also be noted that Vladimir Putin of Russia and Kim Jong-un of North Korea got together for a summit. It was supposed to only last a relatively short period of time. It spilled over more than 2 hours longer than it was supposed to go. And Putin basically said that what North Korea needs is the security guarantees, and they're willing to give up their nuclear weapons. And furthermore, Kim Jong-un asked Vladimir Putin to relay this to Donald Trump in the White House. So what you're getting is the kind of dialogue between Putin, Xi Jinping, Donald Trump, other nations as well, where we are on the cusp of the potential end of nuclear weapons, but not just simply getting rid of weapons, but replacing the entire dynamic, the geopolitical dynamic that has been dominating this country, or this planet, under the Cold War dynamic, or under what was known as the Great Game a century ago, which has always been the same modus operandi of an empire, is divide and conquer. But we are at the point where we can get rid of that divide and conquer strategy British geopolitics once and forever and bring humanity together around major economic development with space at the forefront. I just want to say one last thing. People should sign the petition for the exoneration of Mr. LaRouche. You should also watch a presentation, I guess listen to a presentation that was just done on Thursday between Bill Binney, or Barbara Boyd of LaRouche PAC, the treasurer of LaRouche PAC, Bill Binney, who was the former technical director of the National Security Agency, and Larry Johnson, who was a CIA analyst. Now, Johnson and Binney formed the Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity back during the Iraq War and called out and were part of the intelligence apparatus calling out the lies that went into the Iraq War. They have been working together on exposing the fraud of the DNC hack narrative. This is the narrative where Russia hacked the Democratic National Committee headquarters, hacked the servers, took all the emails of John Podesta and Hillary Clinton, and their trashing of Bernie Sanders, and basically trying to run an operation to have a coronation ceremony for Hillary Clinton, and then gave those emails to WikiLeaks. And that was the basis of Donald Trump becoming president, right? That's the narrative. What Binney shows from a technical standpoint is that that was impossible. It had to have been done through a thumb drive. In other words, somebody inside the DNC, perhaps somebody angry at how the fight between Sanders and Hillary's networks, and likely took a thumb drive, downloaded the emails, and gave it to WikiLeaks. That's probably how it happened. So, but that lie is still at the center of allowing that Russia was behind the election of Donald Trump, even though there's been proven no collusion, no obstruction. But this is the Achilles heel to go after who is really running the coup against Trump. And I just want to finish on this. Trump actually tweeted out, this guy Larry just spoke at this presentation on Thursday. Trump tweeted out, this was from April 24th, former CIA analyst Larry Johnson accuses United Kingdom intelligence of helping Obama administration spy on the 2016 Trump presidential campaign. Wow. It is now just a question of time before the truth comes out, and when it does, it will be a beauty. So think about that. Trump is saying it was British intelligence which ran the coup, or at least citing what Larry Johnson said. If this story comes out and we begin to dismantle the British intelligence networks and their penetration into the CIA and the FBI and so on and so forth, then we can break this oligarchical grip over our nation and many nations on this planet, and is really part of this renaissance. You can't, until you expose and point out the evil of what has happened to this nation and other nations on this planet, you can't move forward. But we're now at a point where we can break this coup, bring the United States into a collaborative relationship with Russia, China, India, and many other nations beyond. Most certainly around the Belt and Road Initiative, and the perhaps greatest domain of human exploration and creativity is space. So I think I will leave it there in terms of at least the introduction I wanted to give in terms of where we stand in the world. And I know Tom is going to give a presentation on the history of NASA. Perhaps well, why don't you just come on up and get going. So.